crimson sands of Zera 7 stretched endlessly beneath twin suns that burned like watchful eyes in the sky. This was the domain of the Huntress, a fierce tribe of hunters who had survived the harsh desert planet for millennia by adhering to one simple truth: predator and prey, nothing more. Azira stood atop a jagged rock formation, her tall, lithe figure silhouetted against the burning horizon. Her skin bore the characteristic pale blue hue of her people, marked with ritual scarifications that chronicled her hunting prowess. The desert winds whipped her long silver-white hair, tied in intricate warrior braids that trailed down her back. 4 digits on each hand ended in retractable claws, now sheathed as she lifted specialized binoculars to her amber eyes. She spotted him again. The human. The last human on Zera 7. Azira had been tracking him for nearly 3 lunar cycles now. Her tribe's elders had commanded her to capture this intruder alive for the seasonal sacrifice, a simple task for Zera 7's most accomplished huntress, or so it should have been. Yet the human continued to elude her, displaying survival instincts that impressed even Azira. Through her binoculars, she watched him collect samples from the base of Fire Arc Canyon, his movements methodical and purposeful. His protective suit, though tattered from months in the unforgiving desert, still functioned well enough to filter the toxic elements in Zera 7's atmosphere that would have killed an unprotected human in minutes. According to the data she'd gathered, his name was Liam Carter, a geological engineer from Earth's Interstellar Exploration Corps. His ship had crash-landed during the final days of the 6th Interplanetary War, leaving him stranded on this hostile world. Most of his crew had perished immediately. Others had fallen to the desert's dangers or her tribe's hunters. Only Liam remained. Azira lowered her binoculars, a familiar coldness settling in her chest. Once, emotion might have colored her thoughts, perhaps curiosity about this resilient alien, or sympathy for his isolation. But those weaknesses had been purged from her heart long ago, after she lost her life mate in the war. Now there was only the hunt, the tribe, and survival. "Your final days approach, Earthman," she whispered to the wind. "The Red Fire Desert will no longer be your sanctuary. You belong to the Hunt realm now." She descended from her vantage point with the fluid grace of a predator, her feet barely disturbing the crimson sand. In her wake, tiny grains glittered like droplets of blood, a fitting metaphor for the hatred that had sustained her people through generations of hardship and war. The hunt had begun. Liam Carter wiped sweat from his brow as he carefully extracted a crystalline formation from the canyon wall. Even through his protective gloves, he could feel the mineral's unusual properties. It seemed to pulse with energy, responding to his touch like something alive. "Extraordinary," he murmured, storing the sample in a specialized container. This could be the key to understanding the entire planet's electromagnetic phenomena. 6 months stranded on this hellish world had transformed the once clean-cut corporate engineer into something more primal. His dark hair had grown long and wild, his face hidden behind a thick beard. His eyes, however, remained sharp and observant, the eyes of a scientist, even now. Those observant eyes had noticed something else recently. He was being hunted. At first, he'd attributed the strange footprints and disturbed terrain to native wildlife. But the patterns were too consistent, too intelligent. Someone, or something, was tracking him with extraordinary skill. Occasionally he caught glimpses, a shadow moving with impossible speed across the dunes, the glint of something metallic on distant ridges. Liam had survived this long by being cautious and resourceful. When his expedition ship crashed after being caught in Zera 7's notorious electromagnetic storms, he'd salvaged what equipment he could. Most of his crew had died in the impact. The two who survived the crash with him had succumbed to the planet's dangers within weeks. He was alone, but not without purpose. As Earth's foremost geological engineers specializing in extreme environments, Liam recognized that Zera 7's unique mineral composition could revolutionize energy production throughout the galaxy. If he could just collect enough data, enough samples, perhaps his inevitable death here wouldn't be meaningless. A sudden electronic beep from his wrist computer interrupted his thoughts. The atmospheric analyzer was detecting an approaching electromagnetic storm, one of the massive tempests that regularly swept across the planet's surface, powerful enough to fry every electronic device and possibly cook him alive inside his suit. Liam quickly packed his samples and equipment. His temporary shelter was nearly 2 miles away, and the storm was approaching fast. As he began to move, a glint of movement caught his eye from the canyon ridge above. For a split second, he saw her. A humanoid figure with pale blue skin and predatory eyes fixed directly on him. Their gazes locked across the distance. Hunter and prey acknowledging each other openly for the first time. Then she was gone, vanishing like a mirage. Liam didn't have time to process this encounter. The storm was coming. He activated his emergency shield generator, a device he'd modified from ship parts that could provide limited protection against electromagnetic surges. It wouldn't save him for long, but it might give him enough time to reach the natural cave he'd converted into a shelter. As he ran through the canyon, the sky above began to glow an ominous purple red, the telltale sign of ions exciting in the atmosphere before a major electrical discharge. The fine hairs on his body stood on end despite the protective suit. He wasn't going to make it to his cave. The realization hit him just as the first lightning bolts struck the canyon rim, sending shards of superheated rock raining down. Frantically, Liam searched for any protection and spotted a narrow crevice in the canyon wall. It wasn't ideal, but it might shield him from the worst of the storm. As he wedged himself into the opening, the world outside erupted into chaos. Lightning struck everywhere at once, the air itself seeming to catch fire. His shield generator whined in protest as electromagnetic pulses hammered against it. In the storm's eerie light, Liam thought he saw a figure running across the exposed canyon floor, his hunter, caught in the open. Even as he wondered why she would take such a risk, he saw her stumble as a lightning bolt struck nearby, momentarily overwhelming her own protective equipment. Liam hesitated, only a moment. Self-preservation warred with the humanitarian values he still clung to, despite months of isolation. With a curse, he emerged from his shelter and ran toward the fallen figure. His shield generator extended before him like a talisman against the fury of the storm. Azira could not believe the foolishness of the human. Through pain-blurred vision, she watched him approach, fighting against the storm that had temporarily overloaded her hunt suit's protective systems. No prey had ever turned back for a hunter. It defied the natural order. Yet here he was, extending his strange technology toward her, creating a bubble of relative calm in the electromagnetic chaos. His face was obscured by his breathing apparatus, but his eyes were visible, determined, concerned, without a trace of the hatred she would have shown in his position. "Can you stand?" he shouted over the storm's roar. His words translated through her audio implant. Azira's training screamed at her to take advantage of his weakness, to capture him now when his guard was down. Instead, she found herself nodding, accepting his outstretched hand, feeling the strange warmth of human skin even through their protective gloves. Together they staggered to the crevice he'd found, barely squeezing inside as the storm reached its full intensity outside. Pressed together in the narrow space, predator and prey, hunter and hunted. They waited in silence as Zira 7 unleashed its fury. Azira studied him in the dim blue light of his shield generator. Up close? The human looked even more weathered than she'd realized. His protective suit patched multiple times, his equipment jury-rigged from salvage parts. Yet there was an ingenuity to his adaptations that spoke of remarkable intelligence. "Why did you help me?" she finally asked, her voice harsh from disuse. The Huntress rarely spoke during tracking. Communication was considered a weakness that might alert prey. The human regarded her with those strangely expressive eyes. "Because you needed help," he answered simply. "I'm Liam Carter. I know who you are." She replied, "I've been tracking you for 3 lunar cycles." If this admission surprised him, he didn't show it. "And you are?" A moment's hesitation. Names had power in Huntress culture. To give one's name to prey was taboo. But they were sheltering together from a storm that could kill them both. Traditional rules seemed suddenly less relevant. "Azira," she said finally. "Hunter elite of the Huntress tribe." Liam nodded as if this confirmed a suspicion. "Well, Azira of the Huntress, it seems we're stuck together until this storm passes. Might as well make the best of it." From a pocket, he produced a small device that expanded into a heating element, radiating blessed warmth in the cool confines of the rock crevice. Another device created a soft light that illuminated their shelter without betraying their position to any predators that might be hunting during the storm. Azira watched these small miracles with carefully concealed fascination. The Huntress possessed advanced technology in some areas, particularly weapons and hunting gear. But the humans' devices showed an adaptability and resourcefulness her people lacked. "You have survived longer than any human should on Zira 7, she observed. "How?" Liam shrugged. "I'm a quick learner, and I'm motivated." "By what?" "There is no rescue coming. Your people believe this planet uninhabitable." "By knowledge." His eyes lit up with an intensity that caught Azira off guard. Zira 7 has mineral compositions I've never seen before. The electromagnetic properties alone could revolutionize energy production. Even if I die here, the data I've collected could save millions of lives across the galaxy. Azira frowned. The concept of knowledge for the sake of others was foreign to the Huntress worldview. They acquired knowledge to survive, to hunt, to dominate, never to share or save. "Your death is indeed likely," she stated flatly. "I have been ordered to capture you for the seasonal sacrifice." To her surprise, Liam laughed, a short, tired sound. "Well, at least you're straightforward about it. But if that's true, why are we having this conversation? Why haven't you already taken me captive?" The question pierced Azira like one of her own poison darts. Why indeed? She had had multiple opportunities over the past cycles. Something had held her back, something she couldn't name or understand. "The hunt must be honorable," she said finally. "You have shown unexpected qualities. It would not be fitting to take you through treachery." It was a half-truth at best, but Liam seemed to accept it. They fell into silence as the storm continued to rage outside, each lost in their own thoughts. Azira closed her eyes, wrestling with unfamiliar emotions. The human should be nothing to her, just another sacrifice to ensure her tribe's standing with the ancient spirits. of Zira 7. Yet, his words about knowledge and saving others had stirred something long dormant within her. Before the war, before she lost her life mate, Azira had been the tribe's knowledge keeper as well as a hunter. She had valued learning, preservation of wisdom. That part of her had died along with her mate, or so she had believed. The storm eventually subsided, leaving an eerie quiet in its wake. Azira opened her eyes to find Liam studying some readings on his wrist device. "The electromagnetic interference has dropped to safe levels," he announced. "We can leave now." They emerged from their shelter into a transformed landscape. The storm had carved new patterns in the canyon walls, revealing veins of glittering minerals. The sand had been transformed in places into smooth glass where lightning had struck. Azira and Liam stood side by side, momentarily united in wonder at the deadly beauty of their surroundings. "What happens now?" Liam asked quietly. Azira turned to him, her face impassive despite her inner turmoil. "Now we part ways. The hunt continues." "Is that really what you want?" The question was simple, but it shook Azira to her core. Want? What did her wants matter in the face of duty, tradition, survival? "What I want is irrelevant," she replied stiffly. "I have my orders." Liam held her gaze steadily. "You know, on Earth we have a saying. Orders are meant to be questioned when they go against conscience." Just something to think about. Before she could respond, he activated some device on his belt that created a blinding flash of light. When Azira's vision cleared, the human was gone, leaving only footprints in the newly formed glass. A strange emotion flickered through her, something that might have been respect or perhaps amusement. The hunt would be more challenging than she had anticipated. As she began following his tracks, Azira realized she was looking forward to their next encounter. For reasons she couldn't explain, she hoped it wouldn't be their last. The next 2 weeks brought a shift in the dynamic between hunter and hunted. Azira continued to track Liam across the Red Fire Desert, but their encounters took on an almost ritualistic quality. Sometimes she would leave survival supplies where he would find them. Native fruits that humans could safely consume. Containers of purified water. Other times, she would find his gifts to her. Small devices that made hunting easier. Maps of safe passages through treacherous terrain. Neither acknowledged these exchanges when they occasionally came face to face. Usually at dawn or dusk, when Azira would appear silently on the horizon, watching as Liam conducted his research. He would nod in her direction, and she would return the gesture before vanishing again into the desert. It was a dangerous game they played. If any other Huntress discovered this unorthodox relationship, Azira would face exile or death. Yet she couldn't bring herself to complete her mission and capture the human. His words about knowledge and saving lives had awakened something within her. Questions about her tribe's traditions that she had never dared ask before. On the 15th day since the storm, everything changed. Azira arrived at her usual observation point to find Liam frantically packing his equipment. His movements were hurried, almost panicked, so unlike his usual methodical approach. Curious and concerned, she descended from her perch and approached openly. "What threatens you, Earthman?" Liam looked up, relief evident on his face. "Azira, I was hoping you'd come today." He gestured to his wrist computer, which displayed a complex pattern of energy readings. There's an acidic oil reservoir beneath this part of the desert. The last electromagnetic storm created fissures that are allowing it to rise to the surface. Azira frowned. "Oil pockets are common on Zira 7. They pose little danger. Not like this one." Liam's expression was grim. The composition is highly volatile when exposed to air. My readings suggest it could ignite spontaneously once it reaches the surface, creating a chain reaction that could spread for miles. Understanding dawned on Azira. The Eternal Flames Basin is 3 miles north of here. If what you say is true, then half the desert could become an inferno. Liam finished, including the area where I've observed Huntress hunting parties gathering water. Azira's blood ran cold. The water collection site was vital to her tribe's survival, especially during this season of drought. If it were destroyed, we must warn them, she said decisively. Liam nodded, already gathering his essential equipment. I've been working on a neutralizing agent that might slow the chemical reaction, but I'll need help deploying it along the fissure line. They moved with unified purpose. All pretense of hunter and prey abandoned in the face of common danger. Azira led them along hidden paths through the desert, cutting their travel time in half. Liam explained his plan as they moved, showing Azira how to calibrate the delivery mechanism for his neutralizing compound. They reached the first fissure just as bubbling black liquid began seeping through, bringing with it a noxious odor that made their eyes water even through their protective gear. We need to form a containment line here, Liam instructed, kneeling to set up his equipment. The compound will create a barrier that should... His words were cut short by a deep rumbling beneath their feet. The ground shifted violently, widening the fissure. Black oil gushed upward like blood from a wound. It's happening too fast, Liam shouted, frantically adjusting his equipment. We need to. The air ignited. Azira saw it happen, as if in slow motion. A spark of static electricity from the atmosphere meeting the volatile gases rising from the oil. A blue flame raced across the surface of the black pool, then exploded upward in a tower of fire that reached toward the twin suns. The shockwave threw both of them backward. Azira recovered first, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to roll with the impact. Liam wasn't so fortunate. He landed hard, his protective helmet cracking against a rock outcropping. Azira was at his side instantly, checking for injuries. Blood trickled from a gash on his forehead, but he was conscious, trying to focus his eyes. The barrier, he mumbled. We still need to deploy the barrier. Azira glanced back at the spreading fire. The neutralizing equipment lay intact, but dangerously close to the advancing flames. Without protection, neither of them could get close enough to activate it. A decision crystallized in her mind, clear and sharp as a hunting blade. Tell me what to do, she said. Through his dazed state, Liam explained the sequence needed to deploy the compound. Azira committed it to memory, then helped him to shelter behind a large boulder. Stay here, she commanded. Azira, it's too dangerous without proper... She silenced him with a gesture. My people evolved on this world. Human. Our skin resists heat better than yours. It wasn't entirely true. She would still suffer burns. But she had a better chance than he did. Before he could protest further, Azira dashed toward the equipment, her body low and fast. The heat was incredible, searing her lungs with each breath. She reached the deployment device and began the sequence Liam had described, her clawed fingers moving with precision despite the pain. The final step required holding down 2 activation switches simultaneously for 10 seconds. 10 seconds exposed to the full force of the approaching firestorm. Azira gritted her teeth and pressed down, counting heartbeats as her skin blistered. 8, 9, 10. The device hummed to life. A pale blue mist began spreading outward, forming a chemical barrier where it met the advancing oil. The flames hit this barrier and sputtered, unable to cross. Azira staggered back. Her arms and face burned, but her mission accomplished. She made it halfway to Liam before her strength failed. As consciousness faded, she felt human arms lifting her, carrying her away from the heat and into blessed coolness. "You did it." Liam's voice came to her as if from far away. "You saved your people, Azira." Her last thought before darkness took her was how strange it felt to be the one rescued rather than the rescuer. Azira awoke to the sensation of cool moisture on her burned skin. She opened her eyes to find herself in an unfamiliar cave, illuminated by the soft blue light of Liam's devices. The human himself sat nearby, applying some kind of medicinal gel to the worst of her burns. "The fire?" she asked, her voice raspy. "Contained," Liam replied. "Your people are safe, though they don't know it yet." The neutralizing barrier held. The fire burned itself out along the line we created. "We," Azira repeated, testing the unfamiliar concept. The Huntress did not collaborate. They competed, even among themselves. Yet she and this alien had worked together, combining their strengths to achieve what neither could have done alone. "Why did you help me?" she asked, echoing the question he had posed to her during the storm. "I was sent to capture you, to bring you to your death." Liam's hands paused in their ministrations. His eyes, when they met hers, held no guile or calculation, only a simple truth. "Because you needed help," he said, repeating his earlier answer. Then he added, "And because I think there's more to you than your mission." Azira of the Huntress. The words should have offended her. To suggest she was anything beyond a perfect hunter, a loyal servant of the tribe, was to question her very identity. Yet instead of anger, she felt a strange relief, as if he had given voice to something she had long suspected but never acknowledged. "Rest now," Liam said, resuming his treatment of her burns. "We'll talk more when you're stronger." Against her training, against every instinct of caution, Azira allowed herself to relax in the presence of her prey. As sleep reclaimed her, she wondered which of them was truly being hunted now, and which was being tamed. Days passed as Azira recovered in Liam's hidden cave sanctuary. Though she could have returned to her tribe, she found herself lingering, telling herself it was to gather intelligence on the humans' methods and technology. The truth, which she reluctantly began to acknowledge, was more complex. In Liam's company, she experienced conversations unlike any she'd known among her people. He spoke of worlds beyond 07, of scientific principles and philosophical ideas that challenged everything she had been taught. Most shocking of all, he spoke of cooperation between species, not as master and servant or predator and prey, but as equals with different strengths to contribute. "Your people have survived on this harsh world for millennia," he observed one evening as they shared a meal of desert root vegetables he had cultivated in a small hydroponic setup. "The adaptations you've developed, physical, cultural, technological, they're remarkable. Combined with the scientific knowledge of my people, imagine what could be accomplished." "The Huntress do not combine," Azira replied, though with less conviction than she might have once shown. "We conquer or avoid. Those are the only relationships we recognize with other species." "And how has that worked for your tribe during the water shortages?" Liam asked gently. Azira stiffened. The drought had been worsening for years, bringing her people to the brink of crisis. It was a closely guarded secret, a weakness no hunter would acknowledge to an outsider. "How did you know about that?" Liam gestured to his geological equipment. "It's my specialty, remember? I've been monitoring the water table across this region. The patterns are clear and alarming. Within another year, your tribe's water source will be completely depleted. Azira wanted to deny it, to reject this human's presumption in analyzing her tribe's most vital resource. But she had seen the dwindling water levels herself, had watched as rations were reduced season after season. If what you say is true, then my people are doomed, she said flatly. No other water sources exist within journeying distance. That's not entirely accurate. Liam activated a holographic display that showed a detailed subterranean map of the region. My surveys have detected a massive aquifer here, beneath the burning cliffs. It's deep, too deep for your tribe's current drilling technology to reach. But with some adaptations to your equipment, using principles I could teach you. Azira stared at the glowing blue reservoir on the map, enough water to sustain her tribe for generations. Hope and suspicion warred within her. Why would you help us? After we hunted your kind? After I was sent to capture you for sacrifice? Liam deactivated the hologram, his expression solemn. Because I believe in leaving things better than I found them. Because knowledge should be shared, not hoarded. And because I think you're ready to consider a different way than the one you've been taught. His words struck Azira like a physical blow. In that moment, she recognized the dangerous truth. Liam Carter had succeeded where none before him had. He had pierced the armor around her heart, challenging beliefs she had never dared question. I must return to my tribe, she said abruptly, rising to her feet. I need to consider these matters. Liam didn't try to stop her. I'll be here, he said simply, when you're ready to talk again. Azira left the cave sanctuary and headed into the desert, her mind turbulent with conflicting thoughts. For the first time in her life, she questioned the path before her and found she could no longer see it clearly. The Huntress encampment sprawled across a sheltered valley, its structures blending seamlessly with the natural rock formations. Azira approached the perimeter with caution, aware that her prolonged absence would have raised questions. She was met by Yak, a young warrior who had trained under her guidance. His expression registered shock at her appearance, her healing burns, her uncharacteristically thoughtful demeanor. Hunter Azira, we feared you lost to the great fire that swept the southern plains. I survived, she replied simply. What news of the tribe? Yak's face darkened. The chieftain has declared the final hunt for the human. All warriors have been mobilized. They say the sacrifice must be completed before the dark moon rises, or the water spirits will abandon us entirely. Azira maintained her impassive expression, though internally she recoiled at the timing. The dark moon would rise in just 3 days. The chieftain wishes to see you immediately. Yak continued. He has questions about your pursuit of the human. Of course he did. Azira had been tracking Liam for months with nothing to show for it. An unprecedented failure for Zera 7's most elite hunter. Suspicions would be natural. She followed Yak through the encampment, noting the unusual level of activity. Warriors prepared weapons and hunting gear. Ceremonial spaces were being decorated for the sacrifice ritual. The tribe was committing its full resources to this final hunt. The chieftain awaited her in the central chamber, a massive cavern whose walls were inscribed with the hunting histories of countless generations. He was a towering figure, his blue skin darker than most, crisscrossed with the scars of 100 successful hunts. Hunter Azira, he acknowledged, his voice deep and resonant. You return empty-handed once again. Azira knelt, pressing her forehead to the stone floor in the traditional gesture of respect. Chieftain, I have tracked the human extensively. He has proven unusually resourceful, or perhaps you have proven unusually incompetent. The words were delivered without emotion, but their sting was intentional. Some whisper that you have lost your edge since the death of your life mate. Others suggest a more troubling possibility, that you have developed sympathy for your prey. Azira kept her gaze on the floor, knowing her eyes might betray her. I serve the Huntress with unwavering loyalty, as I always have. Then you will welcome the opportunity to prove it. The chieftain rose from his throne, towering over her kneeling form. You will lead the final hunt. You will use your knowledge of the human's movements and habits to bring him before us for the sacrifice. This is your last chance to restore your honor. Azira, fail, and you will join him in death. Azira's throat tightened. I understand, chieftain. Do you? He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Because I think you have forgotten what it means to be Huntress. We do not hesitate. We do not question. We survive by strength and cunning, taking what we need from those weaker than ourselves. It has always been thus, since the first hunters walked these sands. The old ways have served us well. Azira recited automatically. Indeed, and they will continue to serve us, if we maintain the discipline they require. He straightened. The hunting party assembles at dawn. Be ready to lead them to the human, or do not return at all. Dismissed. Azira backed from the chamber, her mind racing. The trap was perfectly set. Either she betrayed Liam, a man who had saved her life and offered hope to her people, or she betrayed her tribe and everything she had ever known. As she prepared her hunting gear in her private dwelling, Yak appeared at the entrance. May I enter, Hunter Azira? She gestured him inside, noting the tension in his young face. Speak freely, Yak. Something troubles you about this hunt, he said. Not a question, but a statement. I have known you since I was a child. You trained me to observe, to read signs others miss. And now I read signs in you that worry me. Azira studied her former student. Yak had always been perceptive, perhaps too perceptive for his own good in their rigid society. The human is unlike any prey we have hunted, she said carefully. He possesses knowledge that could benefit our tribe. Yak's eyes widened. You've spoken with him. I have, and you believe his claims. Doubt colored Yak's voice. The outside races have never brought anything but war and destruction to Zera 7. This one is different. Azira hesitated, then made a decision. He knows about our water shortage. He has located a new source, one that could sustain the tribe for generations. Yak stared at her, conflicting emotions playing across his face. If this is true, why sacrifice him? Why not use his knowledge? Because the chieftain believes knowledge from outsiders weakens us, makes us dependent rather than self-reliant. Azira sighed. It is what we have all been taught. But if we're facing extinction without water, then perhaps some teachings should be questioned. Azira finished quietly. They regarded each other in silence, the weight of unspoken heresy hanging between them. Finally, Yak nodded slowly. What will you do? Azira turned away, checking the edge on her hunting blade, a ritual that had always centered her thoughts. I don't know yet, but when the time comes to decide, I will remember what truly matters for our people's survival. Yak touched his heart in salute. Whatever path you choose, Hunter Azira, know that not all the young ones are blind followers of the old ways. Some of us see the drought worsening. Some of us question in silence. After he left, Azira sat motionless, turning his words over in her mind. She had assumed she stood alone in her doubts. Yet here was evidence that others, younger Huntress with less investment in tradition, might be open to change. It wasn't enough to challenge the chieftain directly, but it might be enough to try something unprecedented. As night fell, Azira slipped from the encampment, moving silently through the darkness toward Liam's cave. She needed to warn him, and she needed his help for the desperate plan forming in her mind. Dawn painted the red fire desert in shades of blood and gold as the hunting party assembled. Nearly 100 warriors had been mobilized, an overwhelming force for a single human quarry. Azira stood at their head, her face an expressionless mask as the chieftain addressed them. "Today we complete the sacred cycle," he intoned. "The outsider who has trespassed on our lands will feed the ancient spirits with his blood. His sacrifice will please the water deities, ensuring the Huntress's survival through the dry season." The warriors pounded their spears against the ground in unison, the rhythmic thuds reverberating through the valley. Azira joined in automatically, her body going through the motions while her mind remained focused on what was to come. "Hunter Azira will lead you to the praise sanctuary," the chieftain continued. "She has tracked him these many cycles and knows his movements. You will follow her commands without question. The human must be taken alive for the ritual." Azira stepped forward, saluting the chieftain with her hunting spear. "We hunt in the tribe's name," she declared, the traditional response. They moved out in hunting formation, spreading across the desert in a wide arc that would gradually tighten around their prey. Azira had provided coordinates for Liam's supposed location, a cave system in the western canyons. What she hadn't told them was that Liam was no longer there. During her night visit, they had enacted the first part of their desperate plan. He had relocated to a position near the burning cliffs, the site of the underground aquifer he had discovered. If everything went according to plan, he would be preparing the demonstration that might change everything. If the plan failed, both of them would likely die before the dark moon rose. As the hunting party approached the western canyons, Azira signaled for them to halt. "I will scout ahead," she announced. "The human has set traps in the past. It would be foolish to rush in blindly." The senior warriors nodded their approval. Azira descended into the canyon alone, ostensibly to check for dangers. Once out of sight, she moved swiftly toward a hidden passage that would take her to the rendezvous point where Jock waited. The young warrior emerged from his concealment as she approached. "It is done," he reported. 20 of the younger hunters have positioned themselves as you instructed. They're skeptical but curious enough to listen before acting. And the device? The human delivered it before dawn. I've never seen technology like it. Jock's voice held a note of wonder. He explained how it works, but I understood little. Something about vibration frequencies and water molecules. Azira nodded. "Return to the main hunting party. Tell them I've found signs of the human heading toward the burning cliffs. Lead them there, but slowly. We need time." As Jock departed, Azira continued through the hidden passage, emerging near the base of the imposing burning cliffs. A sheer rock face that glowed red-hot during the highest heat of day due to its unusual mineral composition. Liam was waiting for her, his equipment arranged around a central drilling mechanism unlike anything the Huntress possessed. Despite the danger of their situation, his face lit up when he saw her. "You came," he said simply. "I said I would." Azira surveyed his setup. "Will it work?" "In theory." He patted the drilling apparatus. This should be able to penetrate to the aquifer level within hours rather than months. The real question is whether your people will listen long enough to see the results. Azira's expression darkened. The younger ones might. The chieftain never will. His power is built on traditional beliefs. If those are questioned, his authority weakens. Then we focus on convincing the others. Liam said pragmatically, "Show them a new path is possible." Azira nodded, then tensed as she caught a familiar scent on the wind. "They're coming sooner than expected. Get ready." Liam activated his drilling device, which hummed to life with surprising quietness, a far cry from the noisy equipment the Huntress used. A narrow beam of energy began cutting into the rock at the cliff base, vaporizing stone molecule by molecule. "How long?" Azira asked tensely. 2 hours to reach the water, assuming my calculations are correct. She grimaced. "We may not have 2 hours." As if summoned by her words, the first scouts of the hunting party appeared on the ridge above. One raised a horn to his lips, blowing a signal that echoed across the desert. Prey sighted. Within minutes, warriors began converging on their position from all directions. Azira stood protectively in front of Liam and his equipment, her weapons sheathed, but her posture making it clear she would defend this position. The hunting party halted at a cautious distance, confused by the sight of their leader standing with their prey rather than capturing him. Yak pushed to the front, followed by several younger warriors whose expressions showed curiosity rather than the bloodlust of their elders. Whispers spread through the assembled hunters. Betrayal, madness, bewitchment. Then the ranks parted to admit the chieftain himself, who had apparently joined the hunt upon hearing it, was nearing completion. His massive form seemed to absorb the sunlight as he strode forward, eyes fixed on Azira with cold fury. "So the whispers were true," he said, his voice carrying to all present. "Our greatest hunter has become a traitor to her kind." Azira lifted her chin, meeting his gaze without flinching. "I serve the Huntress, chieftain. Everything I do is for our people's survival. By protecting the sacrifice, by consorting with alien prey." The chieftain gestured contemptuously toward Liam. "You dishonor everything the Huntress stand for." "The Huntress stand for survival," Azira countered, raising her voice so all could hear. "And survival sometimes requires adaptation. The human possesses knowledge that could save us all from the drought." Murmurs spread through the gathered warriors. The water shortage affected every family, every hunter. It was a topic seldom discussed openly, but constantly felt. The chieftain's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You speak of matters beyond your understanding. Hunter Azira, the water spirits demand sacrifice. It is the way it has always been. And yet the water dwindles with each passing season." She challenged, "Despite all our sacrifices, despite our faithful adherence to tradition, what if there is another way?" Liam stepped forward, unarmed and seemingly unafraid despite being surrounded by hunters who had spent months trying to kill him. "Your people are facing extinction within a year if the current water source fails," he said, his voice calm and measured. "I've located an alternative source, a massive underground reservoir beneath these very cliffs." The chieftain snarled, "Silence, prey thing. Your words poison the minds of my warriors." "Let him speak," called a voice from the crowd. It was Yak, standing tall among his age mates. "If what he says is true, shouldn't we at least listen?" Other young warriors murmured agreement. The older hunters looked uncertain, torn between ingrained tradition and the dire reality of their water situation. The chieftain's face darkened with rage. "This is insurrection. I will not have the ancient ways questioned by children and outsiders." He drew his ceremonial blade, its edge glinting in the harsh sunlight. The sacrifice will proceed now. Seize them both. For a heartbeat. No one moved. Then, slowly, warriors began to advance from all sides. Azira unsheathed her hunting blades. "I don't want to fight my own people," she announced clearly. "But I will defend this human and his knowledge with my life, if necessary." "And she won't stand alone," declared Jock, moving to her side, one by one. About 20 younger warriors joined them, forming a protective circle around Liam and his drilling equipment. The chieftain's rage was terrible to behold. "Traitors, all of you. You betrayed generations of Huntress tradition. We honor the true tradition." Azira replied steadily. "Survival at all costs. Adaptation to changing circumstances." The first Huntress hunters knew that rigid thinking meant death in the desert. The standoff teetered on the edge of violence. Hundreds of warriors faced each other. Kinsmen and tribe mates suddenly divided by an ideological chasm. Behind them, Liam's drill continued its work, cutting deeper toward the promised water source. The chieftain raised his blade. "I will not be defied in front of the tribe. Azira, step aside and surrender the human, or I will cut you down myself." Azira's response was to move into a fighting stance, blades at the ready. She had trained under the chieftain himself, knew his strengths and weaknesses intimately. But he was still the tribe's most formidable warrior, undefeated in ritual combat for 3 decades. "Don't do this," she warned quietly. "There is a better way. There is only the Huntress way." He growled and attacked. What followed was a battle unlike any the tribe had witnessed in living memory. The chieftain's overwhelming strength and decades of experience against Azira's speed, precision, and innovative techniques. Their blades flashed in the desert sun, the metallic clang of impacts echoing off the cliff face. The watching warriors formed a circle around the combatants. Huntress tradition demanding that such challenges be honored with space and silence. Even those who had sided with the chieftain respected the ancient protocols of single combat. Azira fought defensively at first, letting the larger warrior expend energy with powerful but ultimately ineffective attacks. She ducked and weaved, her movements fluid as desert wind. Never quite where his blade expected her to be. "You've grown soft," the chieftain taunted, his breathing still measured despite his exertions. "The human has weakened you, just as I warned outsiders would weaken our tribe." Azira didn't respond to the provocation, maintaining her focus. She had seen too many warriors fall because emotion clouded their judgment. Behind her, she could hear Liam's drill continuing its steady work, a constant reminder of what they were fighting for. The battle continued, minutes stretching into what felt like hours. Both combatants bore wounds now, shallow cuts that leaked blue blood onto the red sand. The chieftain's greater size and strength began to tell as Azira's movements slowed fractionally. Sensing weakness, the chieftain pressed his advantage, forcing Azira toward the cliff face, limiting her room to maneuver. A powerful sweep of his blade knocked one of her hunting knives from her grip, sending it spinning into the dust. "Yield now," he commanded, "and your death will be quick. Continue, and I will ensure you suffer before the end." Azira's response was a lightning-fast attack that caught him by surprise, her remaining blade slicing across his chest, not deep enough to be fatal, but enough to draw blood and pain. The chieftain roared in fury, his next attack coming with redoubled strength. His blade caught Azira's shoulder, cutting deeply. She staggered, momentarily off balance. It was the opening he needed. With a triumphant cry, the chieftain lunged forward. His ceremonial blade aimed directly at Azira's heart. Time seemed to slow. Azira saw the blade coming but knew she couldn't dodge in time. In that crystalline moment of clarity, she made her choice, not to try to save herself, but to position her counterattack perfectly. As the chieftain's blade pierced her side, missing her heart but causing searing pain, Azira's own weapon found its mark. Not a killing blow, but a precise strike to the nerve cluster at the base of the chieftain's throat. A technique she had developed but never used in combat. Designed to incapacitate without killing. The chieftain froze. His nervous system temporarily short-circuited. His blade remained embedded in Azira's side, but his hand could no longer grip it. He toppled backwards, his massive body hitting the sand with a heavy thud. Azira remained standing, though blood flowed freely from her wound. She reached down and, with a grimace of pain, pulled the chieftain's blade from her flesh. The watching warriors were silent, stunned by what they had witnessed. Azira had defeated the chieftain, yet chosen not to kill him when she had the chance. It was unprecedented in the tribe's bloody history. "I claim victory by tribal law," Azira announced, her voice steady despite her pain. "But I do not claim the chieftain's position. I ask only that you listen, that you observe what the human has to offer before passing judgment." From behind her came a sudden exclamation from Liam. "Azira, it's working. We've reached the aquifer." All eyes turned to the drilling site. Water, pure, clear water, had begun flowing from the narrow shaft Liam's device had created. It bubbled up from deep beneath the burning cliffs, forming a widening pool on the red sand. Yak was the first to approach, kneeling beside the pool in wonder. He dipped his fingers into the liquid, then tasted it cautiously. His eyes widened. "It's water," he confirmed, his voice filled with awe. "Sweeter and clearer than our current source." Other warriors approached cautiously, each sampling the water with expressions of disbelief that transformed into hope. Azira watched them, one hand pressed to her wounded side, the other still gripping her hunting blade. "This is just the beginning," Liam explained, moving among the Huntress with remarkable confidence for a man who had been their prey. "With the right equipment, we can tap this aquifer properly, create a sustainable water source that will last for generations." The paralysis was beginning to wear off the chieftain. He managed to push himself to a sitting position, his face contorted with rage and humiliation. "This changes nothing," he spat. The old ways taught us to survive by any means necessary." Azira interrupted. "They taught us to adapt, to take what we need from our environment. That is exactly what we're doing." She turned to address the gathered warriors directly. "I do not ask you to abandon Huntress traditions. I ask you to honor their true purpose, the survival and prosperity of our people. This human, this Liam Carter, offers knowledge that serves that purpose." The tide of opinion was visibly shifting. Even some of the older warriors were now examining the flowing water with interest rather than suspicion. "What do you propose?" asked one of the senior hunters, a scarred veteran who had served as the chieftain's right hand for decades. Azira straightened despite her wound. "An alliance of necessity. We allow the human to live and work among us, sharing his knowledge of water extraction and other technologies that might benefit the tribe. In return, we offer him protection and the opportunity to continue his research on Zira 7. "And the sacrifice ritual?" another warrior asked. "The dark moon rises in 3 days. We sacrifice a desert apex predator instead." Azira suggested, "The ancient texts speak of substitutions in times of great change. The water spirits will understand our need." Murmurs of consideration spread through the gathered Huntress. It was Jock who finally spoke what many were thinking. "We stand at a crossroads," he said, his young voice carrying surprising authority. "We can cling to ways that are failing us as the water dwindles, or we can forge a new path, one that honors the essence of what makes us Huntress while embracing knowledge that ensures our future." The chieftain had regained enough control to struggle to his feet, though he swayed unsteadily. "I will not allow this perversion of our traditions," he growled. "Those loyal to the true Huntress way, stand with me now." A tense moment followed as warriors looked between their defeated but defiant chieftain and Azira. Bloodied but unbowed beside the miracle of flowing water in the desert. One by one, they began to move, not to the chieftain's side, but to the pool of water. Even his most loyal supporters could not deny the reality before them. Certain death from drought versus a chance at survival through adaptation. The chieftain watched in disbelief as his authority crumbled. With a final snarl of rage, he turned and stalked away into the desert, followed by only a handful of the most traditional elders. Azira watched him go with mixed emotions. The chieftain had been her mentor, her leader, a figure of ultimate authority throughout her life. His departure marked the end of an era for the Huntress and the beginning of an uncertain new chapter. Liam appeared at her side, gently examining her wound. "You need medical attention," he said quietly. "This is deep." Azira nodded, suddenly aware of how much blood she had lost. The adrenaline of combat was fading, leaving weakness in its wake. "Help me address them first," she requested, "while they're still receptive, with Liam's support." Azira turned to face the gathered Huntress once more. "Today marks a transformation for our people," she declared. "Not an end to who we are, but an evolution, just as our ancestors evolved to survive on this harsh world. The Huntress will continue, but with new knowledge, new tools in our arsenal." She gestured to Liam. "This human, this Liam Carter, is no longer prey. He is ally, teacher, friend to the Huntress. His knowledge will be respected, his person protected by tribal law." The warriors pounded their spears in acknowledgement, a sound like thunder rolling across the desert. Azira felt a profound sense of accomplishment wash over her, even as her vision began to blur from blood loss. "I think," she murmured to Liam, "I may need that medical attention now." As consciousness slipped away, she felt strong arms catch her. Her last thought was how strange it was that after months of hunting this human, it was he who had ultimately captured something far more elusive, her trust, and perhaps even her heart. 3 months later, Azira stood at the edge of the newly constructed water distribution center, watching as Huntress warriors and children alike came to fill containers from the steady flow of clean water. The massive pumping system that Liam had designed tapped into the underground aquifer, bringing life-giving moisture to the surface through an ingenious network of pipes and filters. Her wounds had healed, leaving new scars to join the many that already marked her blue skin. More significant were the changes within the tribe and within herself. The Huntress still hunted, still maintained many of their traditions, but they had begun to incorporate new knowledge and technology shared by Liam. Young warriors especially had shown remarkable aptitude for learning, absorbing scientific principles with the same intensity they once applied solely to tracking and combat. The former chieftain and his small band of traditionalists had established a separate encampment in the far reaches of the Red Fire Desert. They maintained the old ways in their purest form, and while relations remained tense, Azira had established a policy of non-interference. Perhaps, in time, Even they would see the benefits of adaptation. Azira herself had declined to take the title of chieftain, preferring to establish a council of elders and younger warriors who made decisions collectively. She served as headhunter and liaison with Liam, whose status had evolved from tolerated outsider to respected advisor. Admiring your handiwork. Liam's voice came from behind her. He had adapted to desert life remarkably well over the past months. His skin tanned dark, his body leaner and stronger from constant physical work. Our handiwork. Azira corrected, turning to face him. None of this would exist without your knowledge, or without your courage to challenge tradition. He countered. It took both of us. Proof that cooperation is more powerful than conflict. Azira nodded thoughtfully. A lesson my people are still learning, as am I. They stood in companionable silence, watching the activity around the water center. Children played in the shallow collection pools, something that would have been unthinkable during the drought years when every drop was precious. Their laughter carried on the desert wind, a sound that had once been rare in Huntress settlements. I received a signal today, Liam said after a while. From an Earth vessel at the edge of this solar system. They picked up the transmission beacon I activated last month. Azira felt her body tense involuntarily. They're coming for you. Yes, probably within 2 weeks, depending on their FTL capabilities. She had known this day would come eventually. Liam had never hidden his intention to re-establish contact with his people. Still, the reality of his potential departure struck her more deeply than she had anticipated. You'll go with them, she said. Not a question, but a statement of what seemed inevitable. Liam turned to face her fully. That depends. On what? On whether there's a reason for me to stay. Their eyes met, and Azira felt that now familiar sensation. A vulnerability that once would have terrified her, but now felt like strength of a different kind. The tribe has benefited greatly from your knowledge, she said carefully. Your continued presence would be valuable. Liam smiled slightly. Is that the only reason you might want me to stay? Azira of the Huntress. Azira took a breath. Speaking of personal feelings did not come naturally to her people, who valued action over words. Yet some things needed to be said. When I hunted you across the desert, she began slowly. I was pursuing prey. When you saved me from the fire, I found an ally. When we fought side by side against tradition, I discovered a friend. She paused, gathering courage for the final truth. And now, I find myself hoping for something more, something my people have no word for, but which I believe exists in your language. Liam stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his human skin. We have many words for it, he said softly. None of them quite adequate. Then perhaps we don't need words at all. Azira suggested, and closed the remaining distance between them. As their lips met, an alien gesture she had learned from him, Azira reflected on the strange path that had led them here. She had been sent to capture this human, to bring him as a sacrifice to ancient, uncaring spirits. Instead, he had captured something she had thought long dead, her capacity for change, for growth, for connection. In the most unexpected of ways, the hunter had become the tamed and found freedom in the transformation. Later, as twin suns set over the red fire desert, Azira and Liam stood together on the cliff edge, watching stars appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere up there, an Earth ship was approaching, bringing with it decisions and possibilities neither of them could fully predict. "What will you tell them?" Azira asked. "Your people?" Liam considered the question. "The truth. That Zyra 7 isn't the uninhabitable wasteland they believe it to be. That its people aren't the mindless savages described in old reports. That there's potential here for cooperation instead of conflict. They may not believe you. Then I'll show them." He gestured toward the Huntress settlement below, where lights were beginning to glow against the gathering darkness. "What we've accomplished in 3 months is just the beginning. Imagine what might be possible with full diplomatic relations, cultural exchange, shared technologies." Azira found herself imagining exactly that. A future where the Huntress maintained their identity and independence while engaging with the wider galaxy on their own terms. It was simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating. "And us?" she asked simply. "What becomes of us when your people arrive?" Liam took her hand, his 5 fingers intertwining with her 4 in a physical representation of their unlikely union. "That's entirely up to us," he said. "I can return to Earth to share my findings, then come back as an official ambassador. Or I can stay here permanently. Or perhaps..." He hesitated, then continued more boldly. "Perhaps you might consider coming with me, at least for a time. Seeing the worlds beyond Zyra 7. The suggestion was so radical that Azira almost laughed. A Huntress warrior, leaving the sacred hunting grounds to travel among the stars? It was unprecedented, unthinkable, and yet so was everything else about their relationship. "I would need to think about that," she said finally. "Of course." Liam squeezed her hand gently. "We have time to decide. Whatever choice we make, we'll make it together. Together." The word resonated within Azira like a hunting horn's call, clear and compelling. She had spent her life as a solitary hunter, relying only on herself, trusting only her own skills and judgment. The concept of truly sharing a path with another was foreign, yet increasingly appealing. As darkness claimed the desert and stars filled the sky above, Azira allowed herself to lean against Liam's shoulder, a gesture of trust and affection that would have been impossible for her just months ago. "Together," she agreed, her voice soft but certain. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." And in that moment, beneath the ancient stars that had witnessed countless generations of Huntress hunters live and die in solitary pride, a new tradition was born, one built not on separation and superiority, but on connection and mutual strength. The hunter had indeed been tamed. But in the taming, she had found a power greater than any she had known in the wild, the power of transformation, of growth, of love, not weakness, as she had once believed, but the ultimate adaptation for survival in a changing universe.